So we have this event today. It's presented by the ASI Chicago Auxiliary Board. It's called Break the Bias. We who have organized this event, and if you just recently joined, thank you so much for joining. Please mute your phones and have your cameras off. We'll very much appreciate it. You can always participate through the chat to write something. So we, the Chicago Auxiliary Board, decided we wanted to do something. We went and thought a little bit and then decided we wanted to do something from the Mujeres de ASI committee and started to kick off by celebrating the International Women's Day. We have organized this event. Unfortunately, one of our committee members did not join us. Her name is Jennifer Hernandez, and she's our third board member. She's done a lot of the heavy lifting, so I just want to mention her and thank her so much for being able to make this possible. And we feel proud and excited to bring this impactful and engaging discussion to you. Today, we plan to unite and empower women to break the biases by overcoming the barriers caused by gender biases. We're here today with 3 strong and successful women to discuss the different biases that they have experienced and share their stories of how they overcame it. But before I introduce them, I want also to take the opportunity to share HACE's empowering and supporting programs for career enhancement. HACE is the Hispanic Alliance for Career Enhancement. If you recently joined us, please mute your microphone and have your camera off. I know people are coming in the whole time. We would really appreciate that. So as I was saying, HACE is a nonprofit dedicated to employment and development and advancement of current and aspiring Latino professionals. Established in 1982, and I will talk about the 40-year anniversary coming up later this year. And it served as a resource for Latinos in the workplace and as a subject matter for corporation. So through professional development resources and network, and by facilitating access to meaningful career opportunity, HACE has helped Latinos and other ethnic minorities, like me, for example, to succeed in every phase of their career. HACE has a network of over 85,000 members across the country. It helps the employers to remain competitive and increasing dynamic economy by helping to attract, develop, and retain Latino and diverse professionals. So these are the events that are coming. So this is for HACE. It helps to plan your career, get hired, and build leadership skills. So it's all from late university level up to higher career enhancement. The events that we have coming on tomorrow is one, which is March 9 tomorrow at 11 a.m. Central Time here in the US. So we have a recruitment event. This is for finance and accounting. So feel free to join us on that one. If you happen to join us a little bit later, please mute your microphone and have your cameras off. We also have, as I said, HACE is turning 40 this year. So we have a 40th National Leadership Summit and Celebration, both in virtual but in real life. So I'll miss that after the pandemic.
Thank you. Bye.
And then we have the virtual career fair where we have over 50 companies presented in various industries, and you can get a really good connection to connect with diverse talent and top employees of the nation. But we also have in the auxiliary board, in the Chicago local auxiliary board, we've also designed a like rich professional life, which is an event that we have together in conjunction with DePaul University coming up May 24th. And we also have our Young Professional Masquerade Ball, the all party of all year coming up November 11th. So keep an eye on that. So if you want more information, please go to asionline.org, and then there is a phone number, but asionline.org, you get all the information that I've been sharing and talking about. So without further ado, for this event, I have to say when we thought of this event, we wanted to do something. First of all, we wanted to do something for the Mujeres de ASI alumni. Shout out for all the alumni friends joining us today. I'm a Mujeres de ASI alumni myself from 2019 fall cohort. And as we were forming the event, we realized, well, you know, it's really beneficial for all women. And forming it further on, we realized it's not only beneficial for women, it's also beneficial for male allies. So we decided to open this event to everyone because everyone is benefiting from breaking the gender bias. So welcome everyone today in joining us in overcoming the barriers of bias. Today I have with me here three fantastic women. First I have with me is Talita Ramos Erickson. She is the Chief Diversity Officer and the Chief Legal Officer at the Barilla Group. Holding two C-level positions at the same time, I'm impressed. It's actually a true testament of her talent and capability. There is a true inspiration for all of us. And she was actually, and she's in Italy, so she's joining us all the way from Italy. So thank you for joining us all the way from Italy. She was recognized as a leader in the US Latinx community, including the top 10 lideras by Hispanic Executive magazine. She was also seen as the top 50 most powerful Latinas in corporate America by Alpha. And I had the honor to be with her when she got the Chicago United Top 50 Business Leaders of Color. So as I said, she moved to Italy last year, and she's joining us all the way from Italy and helping us to empower and overcome the barriers of bias. So thank you, Talita, for joining us today. And I also have with me Kate Cheeseman. Kate is a customer success manager at Adobe. She's in the tech world, which is a strong male-dominated field. She has succeeded in an industry that is known to be hard and harsh for women. Kate is a stellar global digital marketer and a high caliber in account management and marketing too, with an outstanding success rate in growing and managing global accounts. She has been with several tech companies and will share with us today how she overcame the barriers of bias in a male-dominated environment. Thank you, Kate, for joining us. And then we have final Alexandra Herrera. Just as a side note, Alexandra was my coach. She's helped me so much when I was in the Mujeres classes. So I appreciate you, Alexandra. I would not have been the strong woman I am today without you. She's an executive coach who leveraged in diversity and culture for leadership growth and business success. She has her own business, Herrera Coaching. She specializes in executive coaching and leadership development. With over 20 years of experience training, developing, and leading high-performing teams in corporate America, she has helped people navigate the intricacies of their organizational culture to achieve their professional goals. As a Latina leader, she has empowered people to leverage their strength, background, and heritage so they can be the authentic leaders they are called to be. So help me all to welcome all these amazing women in our panelist discussion. And here we are. So I will actually start with one of my favorite questions about microaggression. Here in Barilla, we call microaggression mosquito bites, and it's also a little bit in the world as mosquito bites because they're tiny, but yet annoying. If you get one or two, that's fine, but you get them constantly, they are annoying. So if my question then will be for you, Talita. What is your best recommendation for environmental treatment from these mosquito bites? And once you get one, what would be the best thing to do at the moment and then later on?
Thank you, Susan. And I know you and I watched the video together. If you Google mosquito bites, microaggression, it's a pretty funny video. And I think that similar to bias, I think the best, remedy is calling it out. I think a lot of times, and it depends a lot on the organization, of course, and it depends a lot on your position in the organization. If you feel like you have, in some organizations, if you don't have, power and are hierarchical in a certain place, it may be tricky to speak up. If you're lucky to be in an organization where you can speak up, no matter where you are in the organization, the advice is the same. You need to find a way to speak up. And if it's not, directly to the person, it may be that you talk to HR or you advise the person's manager that the microaggressions are happening. Because my assumption is always, and as a lawyer, we assume innocence. So we assume that people may just be ignorant. They may not understand what they're doing. So at least you give a chance for people to learn and improve and for the environment to be better. And honestly, some people may not take the advice and it may not happen. And then it's a different problem for the organization. But again, my advice is find ways to call it out and to make sure that the person knows either from you or from somebody else what is happening.
And I'll thank you so much for that one. Now I jump to you, Alexandra. Microaggressions. I don't know if you had the mosquito bites before, but what would be your thoughts and ideas and then guidance?
Yeah, definitely it's very important to call them out because so many times they are so subtle that you find yourself second guessing like, was that the intention or was it not? So that kind of drains your energy. Instead, when you call it out, as Talita mentioned, regardless of where you are in the organization, there is always going to be a channel. So making sure that you assertively bring it up. And when you can do it with the same person, for example, I've been told many times, like, you have a beautiful accent. And some people will mean it, but others will not. And I will ask them, what do you mean by that? So, for example, just trying to clarify, call it out, and explain to the person the way you perceive it. Maybe assuming innocence is not their intention, but you can always explain how that makes you feel, and that brings a little bit of common ground and probably dissipate the bad energy.
No. What is the most common microaggression kind of thing? And in my opinion, I'm thinking like, is it lack of knowledge? And as you said, when you call it out, you educate the person more or less to make them understand, like, hey, it might have been feeling okay for you to say it, but it was hurtful to receive it.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
And it's sad when they think it's a compliment, like I think in the video, they're like, oh, your English is so good. And you're like, it's not a compliment. The other one is names. We had, people sometimes kind of, changing their names to make them more easy for, people who don't have like a different ethnic background to be able to pronounce it. And sometimes people think they're joking and it's not, put some effort into saying people's names as they are. Anyways, yeah.
Kate, what is your take on microaggressions? Have you ever received any?
Yes, I have, and people on my team have. I would say a really interesting one, especially, over the past couple of years with COVID and everything going virtual and video, is I find that I'll get, little side messages and people think it's a joke and but I've had to have conversations where it's myself and some of the other women on my team where it says, you should smile. It's like, well, we're talking about something serious and I'm trying to concentrate and I don't always have like this big sunny smile on my face if, we're in the middle of a conversation, but I don't see the men on my team receiving those messages or it being received with the other men in the ecosystem yet. So I have had to have a couple of conversations where I said, you know what, I know that you mean well, or I think you do, but this is how it's making myself and people on my team feel. And it's stopped, but it's interesting just that, even in a virtual world, they do still happen.
So true.
So I guess then it's like speak up, point it out, and educate.
Exactly. And I think if you go from a place of compassion and understanding, trying to educate, then I think people are very receptive and behaviors turn around really quickly.
What are some actions that leaders or employees can take to prevent or kind of just end gender microaggression? It's open for all of you ladies.
I will take that to start with. As we mentioned before, educating, making sure that leaders and the teammates are educated about differences, what the different culture brings, and how can you find common ground. Zero tolerance, of course, and speaking up, as we said before, but at the same time, it's speaking about what you bring and value what you bring and what the rest of the team brings. For example, instead of mingling in a networking event, just talking about the weather and sports all the time, it's like, what have you been most proud of? What is the favorite, let's say, accomplishment that you would like to share? And then you have an opportunity also to speak about you. And then you build common ground. And in that sense, cultures can get merged, and the beautiful of diversity, the beautifulness of diversity comes through. So that's definitely advice that I would say: education and opportunities to get deeper in the interpersonal connection.
Like that a lot, the merge of the cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And I
would
cannot,
love-
go ahead, Kate.
no, please go ahead.
I'll give two examples that are not my personal examples, but I think, when you're talking about biases specifically, there's been, for example, research around the fact that Black men were getting more severe penalties in the NBA and in basketball games.
Oh.
And so the NBA worked with, the referees and to show that to them, that for the same type of penalty, Black players were getting more penalized. And the awareness fixes the bias, because again, once you know, you like, oh my gosh, I need to be careful, and then you start seeing that. The other element, which is to build on what Alexandra said, showing something that disrupts the bias. So they give examples of, like, if you're in an organization where there's not a lot of women in leadership, it is important that during International Women's Day or Women History Month, that you are showing strong women. If you have an event, bring a strong woman who is, to speak. You need to get people to get used to seeing something that is different from what they're used to seeing. And that has, there's also research that shows that when you're asking people, when you're testing for bias, and you show, for example, if you're testing for a bias around race, and you think that the people are going to have a more negative bias towards Black people, and you show successful Black people, famous successful Black people, the bias gets a little bit adjusted. The negative kind of goes away a little bit. So there's something just around making sure that people have the availability of examples that helps correct bias a little bit.
Exposure, more or less, having them exposed.
Yeah.
I would say too, one of the things is, especially if you have a team, to try to foster an open environment to where if someone feels like they're experiencing bias, whether it's gender or any other type of bias, that there's more of an open door to come and talk about it without judgment, so that it's not somebody festering in their own perception and not being, open to talking about it. But if they're open to talking about it, and with, myself as a leader and the person in this, we can kind of make a plan together to not only address it head on, but then just to make sure that it's validated that if you are feeling this way, it's okay and we should address it, versus not being open to talk about it.
Then it shows it more. I'll stay a little bit with you for the next question, Kate. As a woman in the work field, we experience a lot of gender bias. What tools or skills have you developed throughout your career trajectory to overcome these barriers of bias? And please take us through from the beginning of your career to present, like what have you learned along the way?
Sure. So I would definitely say that, I guess without giving away my age, I've been in the workforce for over 20 years, and things have changed a lot from when I first started until now. I would say after I received my MBA and I made a career change, I was working with a lot of women, and I probably got the best advice of my career of saying that if you don't ask for something, no one knows you want it, and no one's ever going to give it to you. I think I was raised in a more Midwest friendly environment where I wasn't really asserting myself or asking. And I was just reminded the worst somebody can say is no, and then you're left where you are. So as I found more jobs, I learned to ask for the salary I thought I deserved. I learned to ask for positions I thought I deserved, raises, stock options, things like that, where my male counterparts have no problem doing that, but not beat around the bush, but be very direct. You can be direct without coming across as aggressive or things like that. But if you don't talk in a direct manner, nobody knows what you're asking for. So, even most recently, we had some changes in our leadership team, and I was asked to do the job of 2 people. And I said, I am willing to lean in, but I expect within 3 months, a promotion, a salary, stock, or I'm going to have to try to find something new, because I'm not going to be doing 2 jobs for free. I don't operate my personal life like a nonprofit. So this is what I want and this is what I deserve. And I think even using that language, it really helped because within the 3 months, I had the promotion I had asked for, but I just had to ask. And then it's making sure too, I've seen women get promoted through Adobe and through our organization, but maybe not with the same titles that the men ask for and get. So while there's a little bit more pay equity and things like that, when we look at pay equity, we also have to look at title equity. Are you asking for that senior position, that director position, all of that, so that you're doing the same work as your male colleagues? Are you asking for the same titles? That also helps with pay equity and helps with gender bias.
I agree. I see, like being more assertive, even show that you have boundaries, you have claims to make, and kind of come in prepared into it. I said, don't beat around the bushes, be direct, and say, I know my value, I know what I'm worth.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I'll ask the same question to you, Alexandra. As a woman in the work field, what tools or skills have you developed through your career to overcome the barriers of bias from earlier till now, more or less?
Yeah, I think as I have grown in my career as a leader, I have learned more about self-awareness being a beautiful tool, because that self-awareness is kind of a normalizing when it comes to level the playing field and you identifying, am I being just and fair to myself? Would I say this advice to one of the persons that I coach? Why shouldn't do that for myself? So talking about what Kate mentioned before, making sure that our self-worth is top of mind, is in front of us, and just making sure that I check in and know where I am and leverage that self-awareness to bring my value.
Talita, anything to add from your end? What has been your experience? You've had a nice journey in your career.
I want to address something that was said here in the chat first. I was in a conference once, and it was me, and there was a moderator, and it was me and a man, and we're talking about gender equality in front of hundreds of people. And he was this super adorable, nice, committed guy from Germany.
Good to go.
And as we were talking about, please mute your. Oh, okay. And as we were talking about, the topic of the conversation was about, developing your personal brand at work. And when they came to the men, he said, yeah, I don't think you need a brand, you just, and oh my gosh. And all the women in the room were like, and, because, and we're like, yeah, it's privilege in action. We're like, you don't need a brand because you're like a good looking, white, young man, whatever. So we do. And I think when you're talking about how do you bring conversations about salary, about promotions with your boss or in an organization, it has to be in the context where you did the groundwork to show that you deserve and that you earned it. And we may question whether this is fair or not, whether you should just do a good job and people should just recognize for the good job you do. But the fact is, like, we operate in a system where you need to figure out ways to promote the work and the good results you have. And sometimes it's about you sharing the good results of your work. Sometimes it's finding that in some organizations it's better for other women to talk about the work you're doing, or to find male allies who can promote the work you're doing. And this has to be done in a little bit of an intentional way. But I think at that point, if you have done the work on your personal brand, which I know is something Mujeres de HACE talks about, and understanding that, selling your value to the organization, the conversations should be easier. I'm not saying that it was going to be in every organization, but definitely that would help with the, women being perceived as aggressive if they do that versus, obviously a man may not have to do all the work before they have the conversation. But I think if we want to operate in the system, there's some things we can do.
Yeah, I agree on that. And I know when I was talking to you, Kate, off last week, we're talking about a woman, if she's being too assertive and too much, she'll be called the B word or being an angry woman and all of this. So it's a tough world, and it's a fine line where you can feel like you can go and get what you want, but not too aggressive, because then it's actually against you. And I hope one day in the future that won't be the case.
Yeah.
And then there's a Talita's message, like more or less like a sponsorship, find an ally who will speak for you or find a connection. And it is psychologically proven that when we see someone we recognize ourselves in, we like them more. We give them more leeway. We might even promote them easier, or hang out with them and get to know them easier. And by having more women in a higher position, that's going to help younger women in coming up, because then they have that, what I call anchor, someone who sees them and someone who can be their sponsor.
Yeah. Another piece of advice I had gotten from a woman that I worked with was, do you have your own personal board of directors in your current company and or a previous company? At a corporation, you have a board of directors that advises on this strategy and things like that. Do you have a personal one of men, women, people of all different backgrounds that you trust within your customer, so that you can, or within your company, so that you can either bounce ideas off of, or they can help you with some of that advice as you want to move forward and grow your career, either with your current company or at whatever your next move is.
I like that. I've never heard it. Personal board of directors.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to create a couple of them.
There you go.
Oh, great. Okay. Before we move on to the next question, anything you want to add onto this? Any tools you want to share to give up? We said speak up for yourself, be more assertive, show who you are. I would also add this, even like come higher up in the career, look down the ladder and help women out, to talk to them, give them advice, talk about them, and then promote them, be their sponsor, be their personal board of director, even if they're not aware of it.
If I may add briefly, for our Latin culture, sometimes tooting our own horn is even more difficult. So it's like double dipping in the bias. So just making sure that we are able to recognize and bring the facts and the awareness, so we can sit at the table with our homework and our values, so we can communicate that effectively.
Yeah. You be more assertive, because it goes against some culture. I myself, I'm Sudanese from Sudan, and it's the same way, like serving. You don't talk against elderly people, even at work. You respect them, even if they're wrong, and you don't promote yourself too much. You're supposed to stay a little bit humble. Coming here to corporate America, I kind of I've toughened up a little bit and learned a little bit that, okay, I need to promote myself. Otherwise, I can do all the heavy work, but no one's going to see it and no one's going to give me recognition for it. So I need to promote myself. And I learned that a lot in a good way. It's not bragging, because I was like, no, it sounds like bragging. But it's not bragging. It's like really showing who you are, because people won't see it. You see it, but people won't see it unless you tell them about it. So this question, I'm going to throw it all to all three of you. Whoever feels can take it. But do you experience any differences when you're leading men? And if you have, how have you dealt with it?
Sure. So I have. This is maybe a little bit of maybe not the answer people are expecting, but in the ecosystem that I work in, it's pretty male driven. I've tried to maintain a balance of men and women on my team. And one of the trainings I was doing as I was, leading a team was all about diversity and bias and things like that. And I think I realized that on a personal level, I had to be better at managing men, because I felt like I had more in common sometimes with women, as we would talk about, just offhanded, like a reality TV show or this or that. And I learned I had to start asking other questions to really get to know the men on my team in a different way, in a more personal way, so that we could have that same kind of bond and it would bring in the same kind of trust within the team. And I think with that, it's really fostered a culture of like respect and people not talking over each other. And yeah, I saw the comment, if it could only go both ways. And I understand it, but I will say that that's something that I learned about myself. And I had to be very self-aware that, was I doing the men on my team a disservice, or could I get to know them better and be a better leader and manager? So it might not be the answer people expect, but it is something that I realized I had to work on myself.
Yeah, but it's a fair point. It's a fair point. And can it function both ways? I hope so. But I think you were able to see it out because you've been on the other side. It's easier to see it out if you've been on the other side. So no, I agree.
And I think building on what Kate said, I always think about managing my people as managing individuals. So they, they all have unique backgrounds, and I try to understand where they're coming from. If I try to group, the men in the team, I have to say that one of the things that I try to do is actively seek to develop them as allies in diversity and inclusion. And I think to some of the message that Kate is saying, it is not about protecting their feelings or trying to make sure that they feel, you can challenge them, you can put goals for them on how they need to that they need to achieve on diversity and inclusion. But I think there is some level of just like finding out how to the entry point of the conversation. And we just had a conversation on the D&I board that coming to men and just saying like, okay, let's talk about gender equality may not be the best way to foster a conversation about something that you want them to do. So I think that there's different ways that you can bring them in. And it's definitely not about sparing their feelings or trying to, deal with male fragility. I think you can be challenging. You can definitely be direct on the role they need to play. So I definitely, I find it is a little more work to bring them in on D&I.
Always just they chop it in pieces so they can easily digest it, but give it enough pieces so they can grow from it.
Yeah. I want to bring an analogy, like an iceberg. So on the top, above the water, we see men and women. But underneath, there's so much richness on which everyone brings. So building on that is not obvious through open-ended questions and listening effectively and really establishing authentic communication, we will be able to be more successful. I have led men and women, and in reality, it hasn't been challenging, probably because I was born in Venezuela and we are all a little bit of everything. But I definitely root for the opportunity to work together, build common ground, and flourish from the differences instead of just hiding away from them.
Yeah. And I think, every once in a while you will find someone who will resist, working for you and be difficult just because you're a woman. And I think I had at least one situation in my career where that happened, and I escalated. And I had, a person more senior than me who was a man come and say, stop it. And it stopped it.
Do you mind share a little bit, like, how did you notice it? How did you know that this was the case of gender and not person to person?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of it wasn't just gender. I think you observe how the person interacts with other people. I think to me it was both gender and age. Being too young. So I think that sometimes you need to have somebody to come and say, I'm sorry, this is why this person is here. And if you don't stop this behavior, something bad is going to happen.
Someone who felt like.
But again, mostly you'll notice by observing how the person interacts with other people.
Yeah, that's a good benchmark, because then you see, is that the person how they are in general, is it just towards you?
Hey, Susan, this is Christian. We actually have a question here from one of our participants. Can you tell us about a time you had to manage perceptions and assumptions to move your career forward, and kind of pivoting off that, how did you navigate that situation?
Floor is yours, ladies.
Can you repeat the question, Christian, please?
Yes. Can you tell us about a time you had to manage perceptions and assumptions to move your career forward? How did you navigate that situation?
I'll take that for a little bit. So I think it goes back to even asking for what you want. I was told years in my career that I looked too young, so it was definitely a little bit of a women and an age thing. And I think it was just trying to find my voice, where I was looking to say, here are the wins that I've had, here are the accomplishments I've had, here's all of this. So even though I'm a woman, even though I might look young, I was able to do all of this. And here are my ideas on how I can be successful in this role or with this opportunity. Another thing is, if there was something that I've wanted, sometimes I'll just do the job that I want a little bit, not necessarily taking on too much, but then I'll have that, I'll ask not permission, but and not even forgiveness, but I'll just say, here's what I've done. Here's the initiative I've taken. This is what the role is looking for. This is why I would be good. So I think some of it is just really taking an inventory of what you have accomplished and your achievements. And I think that assumptions and perceptions can go away when you have all of that in front of somebody to say, this is why I would be wonderful at it.
I love everything Kate said. And the one thing I would add is that, you know, human beings, they gossip. And you can think it's a negative thing, but the fact is like people are going to talk about people. And the question is, how are your interactions in the workplace and outside the workplace? I think that I love the personal board. Do you have people who are sharing positive stories about you? And you need to think about, how do I want to be seen in this situation, in this environment, and who are the people talking? And if you're not interacting with people, people are not talking about you, and that may be, you know, it may be that you end up with not being known, but you're not going to have a positive perception. People are not going to have a positive perception either. So you need to create a lot of positive stories that people share about you. You need to be very active on that.
Yeah, and I would say that people share and can relate as well. Single mother of 3, came here. They were 9, 13, and 15. Not a good time to move teenagers. Then came, did my transition, worked for corporate America for over 23 years, completed my MBA. My background is in engineering. And that sounds like a mouthful, but sometimes that's exactly what I need to bring to the table so people understand that it's not only what they see here, that is underneath the water, the iceberg that we spoke about.
I would agree. Share of who you are with people. Don't be afraid to show it up. And I normally sometimes shock people because my name is Susan Hamsis. People talk to me on the phone, on emails. They have no idea how I look like. And then I come up and I'm from Africa, and they'll be like a little bit surprised. And then I shock them even more when I say, oh, I do sail. And they'll be like, a woman sailing, a Black woman sailing. Just to kind of break that up for them a little bit. Talita, I know you have to leave in a couple of minutes. You will be, the people online. Talita is nice enough to join us from Italy on a stressful Tuesday afternoon, evening. So she will be only connected through her phone for the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, I'll be on my phone.
Thank you, Talita.
Thank you all.
Stress too much. But thank you so much. We still have Talita with us on the phone. Feel free to
I'm already connected on my phone, Susan. So I'll disconnect from Zoom.
Okay. Great technology we have today. And I have a little bit, thanks to the pandemic, we've learned how to survive in this world of technology and able to have someone all the way recording in progress. Feel free to put any questions you have in the chat. The more questions, the more interactional. This event is for you viewers. So put in your question, whatever you want to know. If you have you want to dig up with a further follow-up question on my question, let us know, or if you have new ones. I think we had something about reverse ageism on the chat. Christian, was that a question or just a comment?
Hey, Susan, can you repeat that real quick?
I thought I saw some question on the reverse ageism. That it could have just been a comment.
Yes, let's take a look at that. So how did you move past reverse ageism? How did you move past that and again, manage that perception?
I think it's in the same way. I mean, Alexandra, from what you talked about, you just say, here's everything I've accomplished so far. I've had, people on my team that have come right out of college, and they're some of the most successful people within 5 years. And age doesn't even become a factor anymore. It's not even something that we would have to do. One of the things I will say that I did that is one of the trainings I took that was really helpful was all about presentation skills and how you act in a meeting. It was a lot of video recording, a lot of listening to yourself talk, which I find to be 100% cringeworthy. But I did find that I talk differently in my personal life than I do at work. now in terms of making sure that I'm talking slower, making sure that I have a more authoritative tone. And somebody had, coached me where not maybe when I get uncomfortable, but if there's silence, sometimes I'll giggle unconsciously and not know that. So there's a lot of things I think I've worked on when it comes to presence. I would recommend if you can find any trainings through your companies or through organizations around executive presence or things like that, it really does help no matter what age you are in conveying the sense of authority. And I think that can help a lot too.
Okay. Okay, let's move on. If you don't have any more questions in the chat, I have my final one, and it's going to be a good one. But do you have any questions in the chat?
Yes, Susan, I think we have one here from Sarah. So when managing some men, people, it can be difficult to bring them into some of the conversations naturally when they seem visibly uncomfortable. How can I bring them in gently?
I would say that probably what looks uncomfortable in reality is extra time for processing. So probably we perceive they are uncomfortable. In reality, they would probably need more time because they're introverted and need the energy to process. So allowing time, the due time for everybody to participate. Like for example, if you know you have some thinkers and introverts in your team, you send pre-reads and help them warm up to the discussion before they come, so they can have an opportunity to come to terms with their ideas and be able to present instead of feeling like a little flimsy.
Yeah, I would also say too, sometimes what I'll do is structure a meeting or something, or maybe ask people like, hey, can you present? This was really good. Can you present to the rest of our team what you did, why it was good? So it might not be something like very controversial or whatever, but just to give some of the more introverted people that platform to speak. So then even with something they're comfortable with, you can get the idea of, okay, how are they processing things? What does this look like? So that if there are certain conversations, you can start developing the cues that you might need to say, hey, Bill, I'm just making up this name. When you and I talked, I heard that you had something that you could probably contribute. Are you comfortable sharing that with the team, or would you rather send the email that you had sent me? Some people maybe are more comfortable speaking or writing, but maybe just kind of having that introduction versus a question of saying, I know that you have something to say because we've discussed this. Would you mind sharing it with the team versus just peppering questions?
Do you still have Talita with us?
I'm sorry, what?
I was wondering if we still have Talita with us. So
yeah, I mean,
I'm
every
here.
now and then, but I think once you build up this comfort zone, then people talk more, and it can evolve. Like once I think they're comfortable talking in a small group, especially if it's introverted, then you can see that carry over to a broader ecosystem, customers, and things like that, where they're finding their voice and you're giving them space to find it.
yeah. Sounds like more like give them time to kind of dare to go outside their comfort zone, because you said like either introverts or something completely new. I notice when people get uncomfortable, it's because they're scared, either because it's new or it's untangible for them to kind of comprehend it. Give them time, encourage them, and show them it's safe to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Susan, it looks like we got another question here in the chat. So I'm going to pose this to the panelists. What are some fear-based assumptions you overcame in your career? And did you have to give up any behaviors or kind of start new habits in order to move forward?
I would take that to start with. I lead through collaboration, and that's not necessarily the best way always. So it's more about situational leadership, how you bring people that need the direction, etc. So I learned the hard way that I needed to come across more directive than my personality and preference style is in order for me to move forward. However, it wasn't that I was fearful of from being directive or of being directive, but I just thought that people will always flourish with collaboration, and that's not the case. So learning to distinguish when is the situation, depending on the experience level, the task, etc., that I needed just to be firm and direct. That was nothing wrong with that, and feeling myself comfortable being directive has been helpful.
Yeah, I would say,
Susan?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I totally agree. And I think the more you work in different environments and with people from different cultures, I think developing these cross-cultural agility and learning how to communicate. And it's more about adjusting your communication style than actually changing, let's say, your preferences or your behaviors or who you are, because I did have conversations about people like, why do I need to change who I am? And it's not about changing who you are. It's about choosing to adjust your style to be more effective in a certain situation, as Alexandra mentioned.
Fantastic.
So completely agree.
Yeah, and I was just going to echo that there are, I talk about being direct and all that. That's very hard for me to do in my personal life, with confrontation or this or that. But I realized that I work with a lot of strong personalities, and when people were saying, oh yeah, we did this, and then I was the one that had done everything, and there was no mention of my name, I thought, wait. This is, you did not do this. I had done this. And I realized that I had to be direct. I had to confront people in a, not over the top way and just say, this is what I need. But it really sucks up all of my energy. And I find that on certain days, because that's not my natural state, but I've exercised that muscle enough to where I don't mind doing it professionally anymore. But it definitely, by the end of the day, especially if I've had a lot of difficult conversations, my energy is completely zapped. So I think it's recognizing, where do you maybe have weaknesses in your natural personality, and not even weaknesses, but just differences in your natural personality? What's more effective, like everybody was saying, like the leadership and all that, and how do you exercise that muscle? It could take a lot out of you for a while, but then it becomes more second nature, and it might not necessarily be your still natural state, but it's something that you're more comfortable in.
I like to exercise the muscle, because I use that a lot, because this is a different type of muscle that we have. Not only exercise, but you need to give it nourishment in both ways. I got a direct message with a question. I'm not sure if that was meant or not, but it says Latinas face greater bias in salary and benefits negotiation, both from employer and sometimes internal culture and gender narratives. What recommendation do you and the panelists recommend? I'll give it to the panelists first.
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry. That was a lot.
Yes, Latina face great bias in salary and benefit negotiation, both from employer, but also due to internal culture and gender narratives. So what recommendations do you have?
I would say document yourself, do your homework. What is your value in the market? Just go to the sources. Investigate where the similar job paid at a different company, and just bring the facts to the discussion. And do not be afraid. Even if you have butterflies in the stomach, just show up with your facts and be assertive about what you bring to the table and why you deserve that.
Yeah, so I would agree, the same thing is do your research. I would say, depending on your company culture, are you comfortable asking the question, where am I in my salary band or anything like that with, your manager or with HR or things like that, just to understand how does that work in the current company you work for? Are there regional differences? Are there, so like location differences is really what I'm looking for. Where are you in a band so that you kind of know what to ask for? And, I can't say it enough, like if you're bringing true value to the organization you work for in your current role, why not show that value when you ask for some of these salary change or salary asks and things like that? The other thing too is, if you look at job postings or this or that, I mean, this might not be the best way, but like, can you do an informational interview with the recruiter and just say, can you tell me what the salary range is, and then make up what you're making so that you're getting some even anecdotal information of what's out there.
And remember that there's some states now that require that salary ranges be disclosed in job postings. New York, I think, is one of them. So I think, if there's one thing that has proven to be effective in closing the gender pay gap is transparency around compensation. So some companies are moving towards having, I think what was described, you have the bandings and you see the ranges, and then you know where you are.
Yeah.
Not every company is there yet. Not every company is doing this in states where this is required. But definitely there is more information today available than when we all, started working in corporate. And I think the other option is also, Glassdoor also has a lot of, salary information about different companies if your company is featured there.
That's great. Great. With the more knowledge you have, the more you know where you pay, like where you're based on the salary, the more you can show and fight why you want a higher salary increase for high benefits. We're about to wrap it up, but before we wrap it up, I want to ask you, what is the advice you have for women looking to grow either their business or within their company that they work for? What is the best advice? Like, do this and you flourish and you will bloom.
I will start. I would say, cultivate courage and self-love. And above all, lead with compassion. Compassion for yourself and compassion for others, but never lose it.
I love that. Courage, self-love, and lead with compassion.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I was gonna say, for better or for worse, I encourage my team to do, as well as myself, as much career development work that is humanly possible. Like, we even on my team, we do once a quarter. We take 3 hours each morning to do, just turn everything off, and you get this time for yourself to learn. Do you want to learn about something personal that's going to make you a better mother, a better wife, a better partner, a better this, which will then in turn make you better at your job? Do you want to learn executive presence? Do you want to learn, take a career management course, things like that? Do you want to use your learning dollars to get a life coach or this or that? I mean, I know my team personally has done this, and it's been wonderful. Mind you, a lot of them have moved on into other careers that they really wanted, but nothing could make me happier, because it's really encouraging people. Think about yourself, think about your strengths, and then where can that lead you so that you want to come to work every morning.
Oh, I love that. Invest in
Yeah,
yourself. And go ahead, Talita.
And I would only add, you do everything that was said before, and then, sometimes you are in a place where you're not going to thrive. And I think understanding that when you've done everything, it's kind of like when you have a toxic relationship. You need to understand, is it time to go somewhere else where I can actually grow and thrive? And sometimes the environment is just not there. And just making, the decision and finding a place where you can go as yourself.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Susan might have frozen.
It's like her screen might have froze.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you hear us, Susan?
Oh, I think we lost her.
Yeah.
I know we are approaching kind of the end of our time here. Just leave you with a few words. Kind of as an advocate, I have 11-month-old daughter. My life has kind of changed over the past year, and I am so proud to have been able to participate in this event and hear from the extraordinary women, just hear all the advocacy, the advice, and the professional development. And one big takeaway for me was knowing that by the time she comes of age to go to college and then start her career, that she's going to be following in the footsteps of you guys, and just the phenomenal example that you guys set. So thank you so much. It's such a privilege to hear from you.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having us.
Thank
This was
you.
really exciting.
Thank you for being on this panel. I think I lost you guys from on, but I reconnected, and thank you, Kristen. I heard what you said about your daughter. Love that. And yes, that's what
Beautiful.
we do, stuff to clear the
Yeah.
pathway. Just to wrap up, your advice, Vanessa, will be courage, self-love, and compassion. Show interest in yourself and invest in yourself. And at the end, like, do all of this. And if you don't get any work, be ready to leave the table. This is not the place for you. You can bloom and flourish somewhere else where people are valuing you. So I love all the advice from all you ladies. Thank you so much. And I also want to thank HACE and the Chicago Auxiliary Board. There's been a lot of people behind the scenes to make this happen today. So thank you all for making this happening. And we'll be hungry for more events like this. So be on the lookout for more events to put in your calendar.
Thank you for the opportunity. So.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you all. Love you all and have a great afternoon.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
everybody.
Ciao,
Thank you.
ciao.
Thank you, everyone. And ciao, bye.